What's going on, everybody? Ray Cole here from Legends Audio. Today we're doing something I've been excited about for a while. Top 7 monster hi-fi stereo receivers from the 70s. These are the absolute beasts of the decade. We're talking receivers that weigh over 50 pounds, push 150 plus watts per channel, and when you walk into a room, people literally stop and say, "Holy crap, what is that thing?" Some of these monsters originally cost the equivalent of $8,000, $12,000 in today's money. They were the flagship kings of their time. Big toroidal transformers, massive heat sinks, and enough power to shake the walls. But here's the thing. Not all monsters are created equal. Today, I'm not just ranking by raw power. I'm factoring in real-world repairability, build quality, and which ones are actually worth hunting in 2026. I've serviced hundreds of these over the years, so I'm sharing my honest ranking based on what I've seen on the bench and in real listening rooms. Like, subscribe to Legends Audio, and hit the bell. Stick around till the end because my #1 pick might surprise a lot of you. Let's dive in. Kenwood KR-9600. We're kicking off this monster list with a receiver that gives you massive bang for your buck, the Kenwood KR-9600. If you want that big, intimidating presence without emptying your wallet, this is the perfect starting point. Produced between 1,976 and 1,978, the KR-9600 pumps out a serious 160 watts per channel into 8 ohms from 20 hertzes to 20 kilohertzes with total harmonic distortion at just 0.08%. It tips the scales at a hefty 53 pounds, 24 kilograms. In today's 2026 market, clean and serviced examples typically sell between $1,000 and $2,000 depending on condition and how much work has been done. What immediately grabs attention are those big rack-style handles on the sides and the overall industrial look. It has VU meters, although a bit on the small side. 3 sets of speaker terminals so you can run multiple zones, pre-out, main-in jacks for adding a subwoofer or external processor, a useful mid-range tone control, and that commanding physical size that screams monster receiver. When someone walks into your room and sees this thing sitting on the shelf, it definitely commands respect. From my own experience running one for several months, the sound is lively and dynamic with a nicely balanced presentation. The bass is tight and punchy, the mid-range has a pleasing warmth that makes vocals and guitars sit nicely in the mix, and the highs are clean without being harsh. It's especially fun with classic rock, 80s rock, and anything with strong rhythm sections. I remember one evening firing up some Led Zeppelin on it. The way it drove my floor standers with authority and still stayed controlled was genuinely impressive. The KR-9600 rewards owners who like a receiver that looks like it means business. It's not the most elegant design, but it has that raw power aesthetic that many monster receiver fans love. Now for the honest part, potential issues. The output stage uses Darlington transistor packs that are no longer produced. Replacements are expensive and you have to be careful with used ones. There are some aftermarket kits available on eBay, but they cost a premium. So if you buy one, factor in possible future output work. When hunting for a KR-9600, look for units with bright, even meter illumination and smooth operating controls. Check that all speaker terminals are tight and test the protection circuit. A well-serviced example can easily last many more years and give you that true monster experience without the ultra-high prices of some other flagships. Sony STR-V7. If you want a monster receiver that stands out from the usual silver-faced crowd, the Sony STR-V7 is a really cool choice that doesn't get nearly enough love. Made from 1978 to 1981, this beast delivers 150 watts per channel into 8 ohms. It weighs a solid 48 pounds, 21.8 kilograms. In the current market, nice examples usually go for $1,800 to $2,200 depending on service history and cosmetics. What makes the V7 special is its distinctive styling. Instead of the typical blue meters, Sony went with a striking green display that looks surprisingly modern even today. Inside you'll find a massive toroidal transformer for clean power delivery, standardized transistors that are much easier to service, and something very rare in this class, a built-in moving coil phono preamp. It's the only receiver on this list with that feature. In real-world listening, the STR-V7 is clean, powerful, and authoritative. The bass is tight and well controlled, the mids are clear and detailed, and the highs stay smooth even when you push the volume. It has no problem driving difficult speakers like Magnepan panels or electrostatics. I've used one in the shop for quite a while, and it handles everything from modern electronic music to classic rock with confidence and composure. The power feels effortless rather than strained. The Sony also has excellent build quality with a substantial chassis and thoughtful engineering. It's one of those receivers that feels like it was built to last. Of course, there are a couple of trade-offs. It doesn't have pre-out, main-in jacks, or a third set of speaker terminals, which some people might miss. But for most users, those aren't deal breakers. When shopping for a STR-V7, look for units with bright, even display illumination and test all functions thoroughly, especially the moving coil phono input if you use MC cartridges. Check the condition of the power supply capacitors since they run warm. A recently serviced example will give you years of reliable performance and that unique green glow that always gets compliments. Next up is a true hidden gem that many collectors sleep on. Subscribe to Legends Audio and hit the bell. Sherwood S-8900 series. Not every monster needs to shout to be noticed. Sometimes the most satisfying ones are the quiet achievers. And that's exactly what the Sherwood S-8900 and its 1970s brothers represent. Made between 1,975 and 1,978, these receivers offered 50 to 60 watts per channel with a solid, well-balanced design. They weigh roughly 45 to 50 pounds and often came with attractive wood grain cabinets that still look warm and inviting in modern listening rooms. While they don't have the headline wattage of some other monsters, they make up for it with refined engineering and a musical character that feels surprisingly mature. I've spent many relaxed evenings with one of these, and I'm always reminded how enjoyable they are. The sound is warm and inviting, with a rich mid-range that gives vocals and acoustic instruments beautiful body and texture. The bass has nice weight and definition without ever sounding loose, and the highs are smooth and fatigue-free. They're especially wonderful with jazz, folk, singer, songwriter records, and acoustic music, the kind of material where tone and emotion matter most. It's the sort of receiver that lets you forget about the gear and just enjoy the music for hours. These Sherwoods are perfect for listeners who want a substantial, impressive-looking receiver without spending a fortune or dealing with high maintenance. They're ideal for medium-sized rooms and people who value long, comfortable listening sessions over raw volume wars. Because they're often overlooked by collectors, they remain one of the best value options in the monster category. Build quality is honest and reliable, and they're generally straightforward for technicians to work on. The wood cabinets hold up well if kept in stable conditions. The only real downside is they don't have quite the same visual wow factor as the bigger, flashier, silver-faced beasts. They look handsome and substantial, but not quite as intimidating. In today's 2026 market, good working examples typically sell between $300 and $600. When shopping, look for clean wood cabinets, bright and even meter lighting, and smooth operating controls. Test the phono stage if you use vinyl. A well-cared-for Sherwood can quietly become one of your favorite daily drivers and give you years of musical satisfaction at a very fair price. Onkyo TX4500, TX6500. Some of the strongest values in the vintage world come from brands that focused on engineering rather than marketing hype. And the Onkyo TX4500 and TX6500 are perfect examples of that approach. Produced from 1977 to 1979, these receivers delivered 50 to 80 watts per channel with excellent current delivery and strong speaker control. They weigh around 45 pounds and feature clean, functional designs with reliable tuners and capable phono stages. Onkyo built them with real-world performance in mind rather than flashy looks. Having used the TX6500 regularly in my workshop for several months, I can tell you firsthand how capable they are. The bass is tight, fast, and authoritative, giving even demanding modern speakers excellent grip. The mid-range is clear and detailed with good instrumental separation, while the highs stay smooth and extended without harshness. They handle everything from electronic music and driving rock to acoustic and classical with confidence and composure. The power feels effortless rather than forced, which makes long listening sessions very enjoyable. These Onkyos are ideal for people who want solid, reliable power without paying collector premiums. They work beautifully with today's speakers and are great for medium to large rooms. Because they're less hyped, you can still find strong examples at very approachable prices. They tend to be more dependable in daily use than some of the more temperamental flagship models when properly maintained. Servicing is usually logical thanks to good internal layout. Like any vintage receiver, they benefit from the usual preventive care, checking for noisy controls and refreshing capacitors when needed. A thorough service brings out their full potential. In 2026, nice clean examples are typically available between $350 and $650. That pricing makes them one of the best value monsters on this list. When evaluating, look for clean internals, test every function carefully, especially the phono stage, and listen for consistent performance across volume levels. These Onkyos prove you don't need big brand prestige to get seriously enjoyable, high performance sound you can count on every day. Pioneer SX-900. When most people picture a classic 1970s silver-faced receiver, the Pioneer SX-939 is often one of the first that comes to mind, and it earns that spot for very good reason. Produced between 1975 and 1977, the SX-939 was rated at 70 to 80 watts per channel into 8 ohms, with strong dynamic headroom that let it handle demanding musical peaks without strain. It weighs approximately 45 pounds and features those large, highly visible tuning meters that illuminate beautifully when the music plays. The front panel is packed with versatile switching options, including multiple tape monitors, a solid FM, AM tuner section with good sensitivity, and a logical layout that still feels intuitive and satisfying to operate decades later. The build is substantial with a heavy chassis and quality components typical of Pioneer's better efforts from that era. What I enjoy most about this Pioneer is its energetic and fun character. The bass hits with real authority and good definition, giving kick drums and bass lines the weight they deserve without becoming loose or boomy. The mid-range stays clear and present, allowing guitars, vocals, and pianos to cut through the mix naturally. The highs are lively and extended, adding sparkle to cymbals and acoustic instruments without crossing into harsh or fatiguing territory. It has that classic Pioneer punch that makes rock, pop, upbeat, funk, and even well-recorded live albums particularly exciting. I remember setting one up in my secondary system a while back. I dropped the needle on a favorite 70's rock album, instinctively reached for the volume knob, and within minutes I was nodding along to the music without even realizing it. That effortless sense of fun and engagement is what makes the SX-939 such a consistent crowd pleaser in real listening rooms. Compared to the warmer, richer sounding Marantz models, or the more neutral Onkyos on this list, the Pioneer leans more toward clarity, drive, and dynamic energy. It strikes a nice balance that works well for listeners who want excitement and impact without sacrificing too much refinement. It pairs surprisingly well with a wide range of speakers, from vintage large Advent or Klipsch models to many modern floor standers. Even today, it still feels relevant and capable in contemporary setups. Of course, no vintage receiver is perfect. The protection relay is a known weak point that can become problematic over time, especially on units that have seen heavy use. Dirty or noisy controls are also fairly common if the receiver hasn't been serviced recently. A good bench check, cleaning of all pots and switches, and a refresh of key capacitors can make these last for many more years and restore full performance. In the current 2026 market, clean working examples typically sell between $500 and $850 depending on condition and service history. That price gets you a lot of visual appeal, solid power reserves, and real listening enjoyment without venturing into the higher collector territory of some other flagships. When shopping for an SX-939, I always recommend testing the protection relay behavior carefully. Turn the volume up and down while listening for any clicking or dropout. Listen for any distortion or channel imbalance at higher volumes. Check that all inputs and tape loops work cleanly. Look for examples with bright, even meter lighting and original knobs if possible. A well-cared for SX-939 remains one of the most enjoyable and approachable monster receivers you can find in this price range. It offers that perfect combination of classic looks, strong performance, and everyday usability that still holds up today. Let's move on to something with genuine golden age warmth and musicality. There's something almost magical about the Marantz name, and the 270 and 2000 238B are perfect examples of why that reputation still holds strong today. From the early 1970s, these receivers delivered around 70 watts per channel with a rich musical character that has won over listeners for decades. They weigh 45 to 50 pounds and often came with optional wood cabinets that still look elegant in any room. The champagne gold faceplate and refined styling give them a premium, timeless presence that's hard to match. Spending time with these Marantz models is a different kind of experience. The sound is warm and inviting with a lush mid-range that gives vocals wonderful body and emotion. The bass is full and rounded, while the treble stays sweet and smooth rather than sharp. They excel with jazz, classic rock, blues, soul, and acoustic music genres where feeling and nuance matter most. I still remember the first time a friend heard a nicely serviced 2270. He dropped the needle, listened for about 30 seconds, looked at me and said, "Wow, why does this sound so good?" That moment perfectly captures the Marantz appeal. Compared to the more energetic Pioneers or the neutral Onkyos on this list, the Marantz leans into warmth and musicality. It's the receiver you reach for when you want to sit back, relax, and really connect with the music rather than analyze it. They do require proper care though. Aging capacitors and power supply components are common on unserviced units. Prioritizing a recently recapped example is one of the best decisions you can make with these. In 2026, good serviced or very clean original condition units typically range from $600 to $950. It's a premium feeling at a still reasonable price. When buying, I strongly suggest getting a recently serviced unit or having it thoroughly tested. Look for smooth controls, stable power, and that signature rich mid-range during your audition. A well-maintained Marantz brings that special golden age vibe that's genuinely hard to find elsewhere. And now for my top pick, the one I would personally choose if I could only keep one monster under $1,000. Wait, no, we're going higher for the real king. Pioneer SX-1250. And here we are, my number one monster receiver from the 70's, the one I would personally choose if I could only keep a single beast. The Pioneer SX-1250, built between 1976 and 1978. This absolute tank delivers a rated 160 watts per channel into 8 ohms with serious headroom and dynamic power that feels even stronger in real use. It weighs a massive 64 pounds and features one of the most impressive power supplies of the era. A huge toroidal transformer paired with an oversized filter capacitor bank that gives it rock-solid stability even when pushed hard. The modular board design is a dream for technicians, making servicing far more straightforward than most competitors. Because Pioneer produced so many of these, replacement parts are still relatively easy to source compared to rarer flagships. What makes the SX-1250 stand out to me is how well balanced it is. The sound is powerful and commanding, yet surprisingly refined. The bass is deep, tight, and authoritative, with excellent control. The mid-range is clear and natural, letting vocals and instruments breathe with impressive presence. The highs are extended and lively without ever becoming fatiguing. It handles everything from hard-hitting rock and electronic music to complex orchestral pieces with confidence and composure. I've lived with one in my main system for a while now, and every time I turn it on, I'm reminded why it's my favorite. It looks like a monster, feels like a monster, but plays with a smoothness and authority that's hard to beat. Compared to the warmer Marantz or the more energetic Sansui models, the SX-1250 strikes a near perfect middle ground. Plenty of muscle when you want it, but refined enough for critical listening. The modular construction means repairs are logical and less expensive long term. It's also one of the most practical monsters pre-out. Main in, multiple speaker terminals, and frequency selectors on the tone controls give you real flexibility. In today's 2026 market, nice serviced examples typically sell between $2,500 and $4,000 depending on condition and restoration level. Because so many were made, you can still find them regularly on the used market, though pristine low-hour units are becoming harder to come by. The SX-1250 is the complete package for most serious enthusiasts. Visual impact, raw power, musical refinement, and better than average long-term serviceability. If you can stretch your budget and want a true flagship monster that you'll keep for decades, this is the one I recommend without hesitation. Hit like if you love big vintage iron, subscribe to Legends Audio, and turn on notifications. Drop your dream monster in the comments. I read every single one. Thanks for watching.